If you're wondering where is all the F1 driver market news, a big twist in the race to sign Carlos Sainz has thrown things wide open again and stopped the 2025 puzzle pieces finally falling into place. The revelation that Renault's works team has told Sainz it could ditch its own engine for a possible Mercedes deal in 2026 is a big development for him, the teams that want to sign him, and the other drivers his decision impacts. It's been a frustrating period of no real developments in the F1 silly season. Sorry Pierre Gasly and Lance Stroll, but your much expected renewals at Alpine and Aston Martin don't really count. But it's not just us getting frustrated at this story's endless twists and turns and lack of a firm resolution. After all, Sainz has now spent 5 months in a situation created by Ferrari signing Lewis Hamilton in a deal that was announced way back at the start of February. His current predicament of choosing between the only teams that still have a seat open for 2025 seemed to have gradually moved towards a conclusion, as Sainz kept a line of communication open with all options, but was known to only be seriously considering Williams and Audi. We even did a video explaining all of that a month ago. But his decision has been delayed because Alpine has told him it could become a Mercedes engine customer for the new rules in 2026, hence the Renault-owned team recently emerging as a serious candidate again. The situation changed after Renault recruited Flavio Briatore as executive advisor and started to weigh up whether to abandon its works engine program, which costs Renault an awful lot of money and has been a big disappointment since the hybrid era began in 2014. While Alpine is proceeding with development of its 2026 engine for now, consideration has been given to switching to being a customer instead, with Mercedes, which supplied engines to this team for its final year as Lotus in 2015, earmarked as the potential supplier. After being told this, Sainz has made it clear to Williams he needs to wait, and that's frozen the driver market yet again, although as we'll explain shortly, Sainz might have less time to play with than he thinks. Previously, the allure of being a works team was central to Alpine's pitch to Sainz, and it wasn't that appealing. So will unworksing itself make Alpine more attractive? Presenting Sainz with the prospect of a Mercedes supply deal allows Alpine to position itself as either a full works team in 2026 or one that will have a supply from the manufacturer widely expected to produce the benchmark engine. It doubles its chances of offering what Sainz wants, and the fact it's interested him enough to delay him committing to Williams, a deal that was on the brink of happening, suggests Sainz's preference is to have Mercedes power for the new engine regulations when they come in. The easiest way for Sainz to get a Mercedes engine is still with Williams. Even if Alpine is interested in a deal of its own, discussions with Mercedes are in the early stages. Initial contact has been made, but negotiations over exact terms are not believed to have started, and there's a lot to work out, so it could take weeks or even longer to complete. Mercedes is already committed to supplying its works team, Williams and McLaren in 2026, and will need convincing to add a third customer. There are logistical elements to consider, like producing enough components for the first year of the new rules. But also, adding another team to replace Aston Martin, which is partnering with Honda, at a standard supply cost would not be financially beneficial to Mercedes' engine division. Customer teams are allowed to spend up to 15 million euros on engines outside of their cost cap, but anything beyond that would come out of Alpine's limited budget for the season. So if it has to pay more to convince Mercedes to make this happen, that could be bad value if it restricts investment in other areas of the team. All of these negotiations are likely to take too long to give Sainz any guarantees in the short term, hence he needs to wait. But even if it comes off, would it really be a good thing? If an Alpine-Mercedes deal materialises, it would raise more questions of Renault and what Sainz is being swayed by. Playing devil's advocate, there is an argument that becoming a customer would show Renault is willing to do whatever it takes to succeed with this team, even if that means admitting it needs someone else's engine to do it. What McLaren is doing as a Mercedes engine customer, establishing itself as Red Bull's most consistent threat, is obviously something to aspire to. It would also eliminate a huge cost centre for the F1 project, potentially ring-fencing its long-term future, as Renault would not have to keep funding something so expensive. And given Renault has consistently under-delivered in the hybrid engine era, it would almost certainly guarantee a performance boost. While Alpine has done well to recover from a truly awful start to 2024 and is performing better than Sainz's other options of Williams and Sauber, it's still carrying an engine deficit. The counter-arguments are it would confirm Renault has no faith in its own engine project and is not committed enough to keep funding it. It would also willingly sacrifice complete control of its F1 project, which is not much of a statement of ambition. And if separating from the Viry engine base with a customer deal is just a precursor to selling the team eventually, which looks like a logical endpoint for Renault, then Sainz could also be joining a team that changes ownership in the coming years. That would contrast poorly with the long-term strategy James Vowles seems to have at Williams and what Audi wants to achieve with Sauber as its new works team. The timeline for Alpine to confirm its engine plans with Sainz is significant because this situation has already dragged on too long and Sainz's other options are running out of time and patience. Valtteri Bottas and Esteban Ocon are in the frame at Williams and Audi, who may decide not to keep waiting for Sainz while he waits for Alpine's engine situation to develop. We'll come to where Williams and Audi are in terms of alternatives shortly, but the main thing to emphasise here is that Williams is now known to be seriously pursuing other drivers again. Williams boss James Vowles says he's done everything to make the case to Sainz culturally, politically and in terms of investment and people, arguing that this is a simple, racing-focused team with the right strategy and big backing from its board. A big announcement on the eve of the Austrian GP of 6 senior technical recruits and 26 other additions from various teams was quite deliberately timed. It had been planned for a while, but it served as a good public reminder of what Williams is up to off track. Vowles really wants Sainz, but he isn't prepared to screw Williams over by waiting endlessly for him. Williams cannot afford for its other backup options to sign elsewhere and then learn Sainz is choosing Alpine anyway. Vowles says he has sympathy for Sainz's situation as he deserves to be choosing between better teams, but he thinks the time has finally come to lock things down. Meanwhile, Sainz claims he won't react to any pressure as it's such an important decision. Sainz would obviously have hoped to have made his mind up by now, as the drawn-out saga that is leaving other teams and drivers hanging on is not good for him either. But a decision might not be imminent. F1's finally about to finish a European triple header of races, which Sainz says had not been the right time to consider his options in full and decide his future. So he might only be getting to a decision in a week or two at the earliest, and if Williams and Audi decide to conclude negotiations with other drivers in the meantime, it would leave Alpine as the only seat left for Sainz. A slightly cynical view, held by at least one of Sainz's other pursuers, is this might even be Alpine's play. The theory is that by floating a prospective Mercedes deal, Alpine can make Sainz wait long enough to time out its rivals, so whichever engine Alpine ends up with for 2026, it ends up becoming Sainz's only remaining option anyway. Briatore is known to be a mega wheeler dealer, great in negotiations, so who knows what his real tactics might be. Until Sainz decides what he wants to do, the other drivers trying to secure their F1 futures simply have to sit back and wait, and understandably, they're getting annoyed by that. It's perfectly normal for drivers further down F1's food chain to have to wait on the bigger names, but it's extraordinary for the lower reaches to be hanging on the decision of one individual. That group includes Bottas. The 10-time Grand Prix winner is a contender for all 4 vacancies, which includes the Haas seat that Sainz isn't interested in, and Bottas admits he found it weird that he is stuck while multiple teams chase the same driver. But Bottas claimed he knew there were other reasons for this, hinting it is beyond Sainz just being in demand because he's a multiple race winner too. This usually means wider commercial matters are at play, which is no surprise given a high-profile driver like Sainz has plenty of partners, most significantly Santander. Whatever the cause, Bottas has been left waiting like everybody else. But if Williams is serious and about to move things on with or without Sainz, the ball might finally start rolling for the other drivers stuck in the queue. Williams is looking at Bottas and Ocon, with both drivers known well to Vowles due to several years together at Mercedes. Bottas raced there from 2017 to 2021, while Ocon was a junior, reserve and simulator driver who's still effectively managed by Mercedes. From what we hear, Bottas is the favourite there, as Ocon's record for scrapping too much with his teammates counts against him. That could hurt Ocon with Audi too. He seems to be the main backup to Sainz, but isn't so highly coveted that Audi is keen to rush a deal to lock him down, so Haas seems to be Ocon's best bet. Audi's willing to risk missing out on Ocon and going for someone else if it can't get Sainz. That could mean keeping Bottas, but relations have soured quite a bit, and the only way he stays at Sauber for the Audi era is if he doesn't get a seat at Williams, Alpine or Haas. Beyond that, Audi will need to turn to a rookie. One option is current Red Bull youngster Liam Lawson if he's not given an RB seat and becomes contractually available. The other is Sauber's own protege, Théo Pourchaire, the 2023 Formula 2 champion, who was recently axed by McLaren's IndyCar team after just 3 races, but could have been recalled anyway if Sauber had wanted to give him an F1 seat in 2025. That might still happen, but he's relying on a lot of circumstances falling his way. Nothing can be ruled out given Audi is seriously at risk of missing out on number 1 target Sainz, with Williams potentially in the same boat now as well, as this silliest of silly seasons continues to catch people out.